The Moore Show is in partnership with Ozark Mountain Publishing, taking readers beyond the unexplained.
If you like what you watch, then don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Twitter for the latest updates on The Moore Show. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel for new weekly television and radio shows.
The Moore Show is supported by Mindscape, Paranormal and UFO Matrix magazines, available for download on all major digital platforms. The comments and views expressed on The Moore Show are those of the people that make them and do not necessarily reflect the view of Kevin Moore, The Moore Show, or this radio station and its affiliate or sponsors. This show is for entertainment purposes only.
Broadcasting live from across the UK and online. You're now listening to the UK's only live alternative late-night talk show, and I'm Kevin Moore. For the next 3 hours, I'll be covering subjects that will open up your mind and provide you with information you may have never heard before. On tonight's show, I'll be speaking to Lloyd Pye, who is a researcher and author known for his work in the Starchild Skull and intervention theory. In just a moment, Lloyd will be joining me to share his investigations into a 900-year-old human-like skull known as the Starchild Skull and also the Conehead child. On the second half of the show, I'll be joined by Neil Slade, who is an author on brain and behaviour. He'll be teaching you how to tickle your, I get this word right, amygdala. I've got that word wrong probably, so do excuse me, to turn on the best part of your brain, so stay tuned to find out how your brain works. The phone lines will be open on the second and third part of each interview for you to interact with the guests, and we'll be live every Tuesday, Thursday and Saturday from 1 AM to 4 AM British Summer Time, and that's Monday, Wednesday and Friday 8 PM to 11 PM Eastern Daylight Time in America. I'm now joined with Lloyd Pye via Skype. Lloyd Pye is the director of the Starchild Project, a research organisation that has been investigating the Starchild Skull since February of 1999. Good evening, Lloyd. Are you there?
Yes, I am.
Hey, Lloyd. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you very much. And it's great to have you on the show, Lloyd. This is a fascinating subject, I've got to say.
I think so too.
How did you get involved in this subject? Let's just start there as well. And what is have you always had an interest as well in the paranormal subjects?
No, I really haven't. My interest originally was hominoids, which is Bigfoot and the abominable snowman, things like that. Certainly not paranormal, just alternative science. And I've always been interested in alternative science and have really not been into the paranormal at all.
Just tell us a bit about then the Starchild Project and what it is, Lloyd.
Okay, the Starchild Project started 14 years ago. When I came into possession and control of a skull called the Starchild Skull, obviously, that had been found in 1930 by a woman of Mexican heritage who was living in El Paso, Texas, and she was a teenager at the time. And when visiting her family residence of her parents, where they had grown up, which was a small, isolated, out-of-the-way village about 100 miles southwest of Chihuahua. While there for the first time, she stumbled into a mine tunnel, didn't stumble in, she was looking around, but anyway, she got into a mine tunnel and she found two skeletons there. One of the skeletons was a normal, human skeleton lying on its back, and the other one was a mound of dirt that she opened up with her hands to find what she called a misshapen skeleton in there. And that one, she recovered the two skulls of the two skeletons that she had found, brought them back to the States, assumed that the unusual one was merely a deformed human of some kind, and she kept them for the next 60 years until she was dying, and then she passed them on to somebody else, another couple in El Paso. They passed them on to a third couple, Ray and Melanie Young, and Ray and Melanie had been a neonatal nurse for about 10, 12 years, and she knew that it wasn't a standard human deformity. She knew a lot about deformity at that point, and she knew that it couldn't be that. And she and Ray were members of MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network, and so she knew about aliens. And so she said that to her, it looked very much like the skull that would fit inside a gray alien. It had all of the classic hallmarks that one associates with your standard stereotypical gray alien, with the head that bulges out with a crease down the middle, comes around and comes to a very narrow point down here like that. That's what it looks like. And I have for your audience a model so you can see this is a stereolithographic copy of what's left of the skull itself, and it's missing the front nose and its maxilla,
Right.
which is its upper jaw through here, and of course its lower jaw, which is not connected to a skull. But the eye sockets, if you can see, I know it's kind of difficult here, but they're very, very shallow. Normal human eye sockets go, and I have a copy of that here to use. You see normal human eye sockets, very, very deep, go, fully 2 inches up to my first two knuckles. That's a standard eye socket. If you look at the Starchild, it doesn't even go to 1 knuckle. It's less than an inch of depth. So completely different. The weight of it is different. The bone is 1/2 or less of normal human bone thickness. It weighs much less, and yet it's 2 or 3 times as durable, because woven through the matrix of the bone are fibers that are the equivalent of like rebar through concrete, and that makes this bone much, much more durable than human bone. Not just the fibers, there is also an exceedingly high level of collagen in here, which is what makes bone what it is. But as you see, it's completely redesigned in the rear. Its neck, this is the knot, this is the area of the knot that we all have in the rear of our heads. If you feel back here where your neck is attaching to your head, there's a knot there. That's called the inion, or the external occipital protuberance. If you look at the Starchild, it's a dent. It's a concavity. You can feel it very clearly. But this is where the human neck would be attached, right up against its occipital, if it were a normal human of any kind. Even a deformed one is going to have a neck sitting about where it should. Yet the Starchild, this knot here is all the way down here, and its neck is like this, and there is its foramen magnum. I don't know if you can see the hole right here.
Yes, I can, yes.
So its neck is going to be the size of my wrist rather than my neck. I mean, this is a normal neck on a normal head. Well, some would argue that, but nonetheless, its neck is going to be the size of my wrist, balancing this very large head perfectly left to right and front to back, or back to front, however you care to look at it. So it's sitting like an unusual shaped golf ball on a golf tee, whereas a human, if you look at the standard human and how that works, we see just what I said. You have the inion here, you have the area of the neck, and you see how large it is. You see the area of the neck through here. You can almost see how the neck attaches right through all this. And you also see that it matches up, it balances well to the rear of center, because the front of a face of a human is pretty much hollow with those very deep eye sockets. The frontal sinuses, the nasal cavity, the mouth, all of that's hollow. So you have basically a fat kid and a skinny kid on a seesaw, so you have to misbalance it a little bit in order to make it work, and that is what humans have. The Starchild, on the other hand, has none of that. It has no frontal sinuses at all. It has those very shallow eye sockets, very small nasal cavity, very small mouth. And by the way, the roof of its mouth is flat, so that if it has a tongue, and we assume it does because it had teeth, it's got a tongue like the thickness of cardboard for just flipping the food back. It isn't like what we have a tongue for, or not a tongue that we have.
Yes.
In so many ways, Kevin, in so many ways, it's different. There are 25 major 25 major differences and a number of minor differences between the Starchild skull and a normal human skull. So that is what makes it so special. It is one of a kind in the world, and I can assure you and assure your audience
Yes.
that we are hot on the trail right now of getting the money to sequence the full genome. Now, we have sequenced at this point a couple of 100 million base pairs, a couple of 100 million base pairs.
Okay, so when you're talking about sequence the genome, you're talking about trying to define if it's, what its DNA makeup is. Is that right? Or
Exactly that. Exactly that.
Hmm.
In other words, what we're trying to do with the Starchild is prove that at least once, and it's a 900-year-old skull. We have it carbon dated at 900 years ago. At least once, 900 years ago, an alien being lived and died and was buried on this planet. And the way you do that, obviously, is with its DNA. And if its DNA shows that it is not human, you can't argue that. You just simply can't argue that. It's the one tool that science uses for its own good. In other words, we get to run them through with their own sword, as the saying goes.
Well,
because
that was sort of leading on to, how has science, accepted your work? I mean, have they been quite skeptical? I don't think they've been very supportive, have they?
No, they're not, and I wouldn't expect them to. If I was one of them, I wouldn't be supportive of this. This is going to upend every power chair there is in the fields of science that are related to what I'm doing: anthropology, archaeology, zoology. There are a lot of things that are going to take a hit by proving that alien life is real, or at least was real once. And that's all we can prove, that it existed once on Earth 900 years ago. So that leaves a lot of room for the conservatives out there to still say, well, okay, 900 years ago, one time, that doesn't mean that we're still being visited today or whatever. But it also gives those of us who are of a more liberal bent of mind, who are looking to the future, to say, okay, look, 900 years ago, if it was good then, it's good now, and UFOs and aliens are real. Because and I know, in politics and in everything else, you have that great mass of people who like to look backwards and say, well, I wish everything was just the way it was when I was growing up, and I don't like all this change,
Yes.
There's that group of people. And then there are the other people, especially younger people as a rule, who say, look, I want to live in the future. I want to build a better future. And so the Starchild stands at a pivotal point, allowing both of those people to have play. But over time, of course, it's obvious that if you have one, more are going to start coming out of the basements and the hidden drawers of museums around the world, because it's not safe for them to come out now. But once the Starchild makes it safe, then probably all kinds of things are going to start coming out, and people are going to, once it's safe, we'll find a lot of evidence where right now there's only the Starchild.
Well, did you doubt it to begin with? I mean, you must have had some doubt, Lloyd.
I did. Oh, absolutely. I saw it on February 18th, 1999. Ray and Melanie showed it to me. And I said, it has to be some kind of deformity. And Melanie says, no, I don't think so. I've never seen anything like it. I know the books. I've been doing research. It is not a human deformity, and it is no combination of human deformities. And I just said, but it has to be. We can't be holding an alien skull in our hands here. It just can't be. Your mind rebels at first. It really does. And that's why when people hear this at first, when people hear my voice right now, probably a lot of them are saying, oh, he's got to be another one of those crackpots. Not true. But I know, because I stood in their shoes. My first thought was that it had to be probably some kind of deformity, but I had to admit, I couldn't tell what it was. Melanie didn't have any answers, so I said, what I'll do is I'll go out and find out what it is. So over the next year, I took it to probably 22, 23 experts in various aspects of skull anatomy, and I would say, what can you tell me about the eyes? They say, well, I have no way to explain the eyes, but it's got to be some kind of deformity. What can you tell me about the nose and the way it has no brow ridges and the way the nose doesn't dip? What can you tell me about that? Well, I don't have a way to explain that, but it's got to be some kind of deformity. What can you tell me about the ears? It's got these really big inner ears, twice the size of our inner ears. What do you know about that? Well, I don't know how to explain that, but it's got to be some kind of deformity. Well, you hear that you hear that 20 times, and you realize nobody really knows anything about anything relative to this skull. It is a mystery, and so that was at the physical level. But from a physical standpoint, as I said, there are 25 major physical differences between it and a human skull. There are no connections, no similarities. There's nothing on the star child that you could say this is exactly like a human skull. Not a thing, not a piece. So it's totally different. But still, even then, scientists would say, well, just nature can do anything. You don't have anything there. That doesn't prove anything. Nature is capable of any miracle we dictate that we can't explain. We just say nature can. Just the same way religious people, when you back them into a corner, what do they say? God can do anything. I don't have to answer
like you say, Lloyd, I mean, the bone structure, the actual, I mean, it's such a tough structure as well that it doesn't match up with any sort of, human skulls that we've discovered. But, Lloyd, we're going to have to take a quick break here, and we're going to get more into this fascinating story just after this.
The Moore Show is in partnership with Ozark Mountain Publishing, taking readers beyond the unexplained.
Visit themoreshow.co.uk/shop to purchase products and services from your favourite past guests. If you're new to this site, you can also catch up on the previous television and radio shows through YouTube and the Moore Show website.
The Moore Show is supported by Mindscape, Paranormal and UFO Matrix magazines, available for download on all major digital platforms.
Welcome back to the show. I'm currently joined by our guest, Lloyd Pye, who is director of the Starchild Project. Lloyd, welcome back.
Thank you, Kevin. Good to be back with you.
So, Lloyd, why do you think this hybrid was? Well, would you class it as a hybrid? You
no, I would not.
No,
I did for a long time. We had a DNA test, Kevin, in 2003 that indicated clearly, using the technology of the time, that the star child had a human mother and a non-human father. The problem with that analysis in 2003 and beyond, for the years that we believed it, was that there was no remnant of the mother in its physical structure. So it's like, how could it be a hybrid between an alien father and a human mother and have nothing of mom left? So that was always a difficult thing to explain, but we had to go with what the technology told us in 2003. Well, in 2003, they were using primers, the Stone Age of DNA analysis compared to where it is now. So, and now we know clearly for sure that there is no real relation to humans other than the same genetic relation that a rat has, or a rabbit, or a cow, or a dog, or a cat, or anything. Some of the patterns are the same in the Starchild's genome as you will find in a human genome. In other words, the life code of Earth is the Starchild's life code, and probably very likely the life code of the universe. The galaxy certainly, and perhaps of the universe. It's too complicated to have done it too many other times. So that life code of the star child, while similar in parts to human, is absolutely radically different from humans overall. And when I say that, I mean we have about 3,200,000 base pairs in our genome. Humans do about 3,200,000. Of the 200 million that we've recovered from the star child and have some degree of analysis about it, the range of difference is going to be maybe is 50% different. That is staggering, shockingly different. It's a chimp is 2 to 3% different, and 97, 98% the same. A chimp, a gorilla, 5% difference, 95% the same. And yet the star child could go, 50% different, 60% different, 70% radically different. Excuse me, I'm sorry, 50%, 60%, 70% the same, somewhere in there or less. We don't know. All we can tell is that the general ballpark it's shaping up to be in is so radically different from human, there's no way anybody's going to be able to say that it's some kind of variation on the human form. That just isn't going to happen. They're
Okay.
going to have to accept that it's alien.
So do you think they were marooned? Was this a crashed craft or something?
That's my,
And
that's really
where's the
the best
wreckage?
guess.
Where's the
Yeah,
wreckage?
when people ask me what it is, I think it probably is a marooned, isolated crash. Where's the wreckage? 900 years ago, you tell me, out in the
Hmm.
middle of the desert of nowhere outside Chihuahua. I have no idea where the wreckage would be or anything. But all I know is that this individual alone seems to be stranded here, as far as we know. Now, like I said again, there are a lot of skulls that can come up and in museums and things around the world that will be like the Starchild. But I can tell you this: there is another group of skulls called Coneheads that are every bit as different in their own way as the Starchild. And the Coneheads predominate in Peru, but they're also found in other parts of the world. And for those of you who don't know what they are, this is a human brain cast right here. And everybody knows kind of how a human brain looks, how lumpy it is, and all that. Imagine, if you will, this same amount extended back to here, the same amount, just double it, double the brain capacity in a skull. That's a conehead. And there are
Yes.
hundreds of them, literally hundreds of those skulls found in Peru and in the museums of Peru and Chile and Malta and Egypt and places like that. These were a race of beings, a type of being that are not human. They do have human like faces. They resemble human. They are human like. The Star Child is not human like. It's clearly alien. But the Coneheads are human like except for double the brain. So
But then what research? I mean, has there been much research done into the Coneheads as well? I mean,
no, I think our group has done probably the most that's been done to date. And really all we've done is dated them we have 4 samples so far. We have hundreds at our disposal, but this is another third rail that science doesn't want to touch. So in the same way, we have to work extremely hard to get scientists with enough nerve to work on the Star Child, even anonymously, which they have to do or they'd lose their jobs. This is really, really beyond a hot potato. It's a third rail. You touch it wrong in your career, you will die. Your career will be over with. So they have to be very, very careful. So no, they don't go out of their way to work on the Coneheads or the Star Child because UFO reality is not something science wants to deal with. Science has this wonderful publicity machine that makes it seem like they're out on the cutting edge of everything there is. Oh, lead us to the cutting edge. We can't wait to bring change and all that. Totally, totally not true. Totally false. The big change, science is happy to make changes in incremental steps. I mean, absolutely incremental steps forward that they can all manage and not lose their control, their seat in the power chairs. But something like this comes along, something like UFO reality comes along when they've all been saying, can't be true, can't be true, the distances are too far, they can't get here, and all of that. As soon as that's all proven wrong, it means everything they think they know about, Einsteinian physics and speed of light and all these things go out the window and they have to find the truth. And they don't want to have to face up to the fact that, in all honesty, Kevin, science today in certain areas is absolutely no different in its level of ignorance from people 500 years ago who said that the earth is flat and it's the middle of everything. The people then were as ignorant about true reality, we know that now, as people 100 years from now or 200 years from now are going to look back on us and say, boy, were they ignorant? Were they stupid? Did they not know anything? But our scientists can't afford to acknowledge that. They have to make it seem forever and a day that they're absolutely on top of the game. At any given point in time, we know everything there is to know about everything. And oh, yeah, we made some mistakes in the past, but it's okay. We know where we are now. Well, the history of science is that it is nothing but one long series of corrected mistakes. They're never really right. They're always changing and correcting their mistakes, and they will continue to do that into the future. But the Star Child, things like the Star Child, create such humongous change and overturn virtually overnight that they have to live with the ignominy of it for years and perhaps decades before they get over it and get themselves righted so that they're back in the power chairs. None of them would want this to happen on their watch. And as I always say, if I was one of them, if I were doing what they do, I would feel the same way. I would be as antagonistic toward it as they are, and I would do everything I can to avoid having to confront the reality of it as they do. This is just the way the game is played. This is hardball. It's hardball around the world.
So Lloyd, I mean, how would this change the world then, in your opinion?
Well, it would change a number of things. It would do the Star Child itself provides a perfect middle step toward full disclosure. It isn't the equivalent of UFOs landing on the White House lawn, for example, as everybody always uses that cliche, or a saucer hovering over a football stadium where people, take 1,000 photographs of it with their cell phones. Something like that's going to happen one day. Well, that's an overnight change. That is like everybody has to just face up to it overnight. The Star Child provides a middle step. It does what I said earlier. It allows the conservatives to stay conservative, to make a concession that, yeah, okay, 900 years ago, but it doesn't force them to face up that it's going on now and that we're part of a larger galactic community out there. But it allows those of us who really are just straining at the bit to get into the future and get into that new reality. It allows them to start doing things on free energy, on the electric universe, giving up the gravity model for what holds everything together in the universe. That's silly and it's completely outdated and outmoded, but they cling to it because to give that up gives up Newton and gives up Einstein. They don't want to do that. They don't want to go back to scratch. The fossil fuel, you have that problem. If the UFOs can get here without fossil fuels, why can't we do it? And it'll force people and some to do it unwillingly, and it will allow those who want to willingly to make changes, to start moving us toward where we have to go, which is the future. It will help us to move faster into the future if we can get those who are holding us back to get out of the way. And that's really what I'm about with the Star Child and the Coneheads that I mentioned earlier. They can do the same thing. There's only one Star Child, but as I said, there's hundreds of Coneheads. And they represent a clear culture that was on the earth at some distant point in the past, and that's something else that the Star Child will bring. It will bring a detailed analysis not only of it, but of these Coneheads, and it's a much richer field to explore because there's so many of them in so many places around the world. And when that starts happening, we're going to learn an enormous amount about the Coneheads, and we're going to have to acknowledge that they too were an alien race of beings living on the earth, but living all over the earth. The earth might have been theirs at one point, for all we can tell. So these are fantastic changes that are coming once the door is opened, or once, maybe a better analogy is once the wall crumbles, the wall of security and safety that science hides behind, certain aspects of science.
Yes.
Once that wall goes down, who knows what's going to come slithering over the hole? I can't imagine. I just believe that it's all going to be good things in the end.
Well, we'll get more into your work on the genetic investigation side in just a bit as well. Well, I've lost my train of thought there a little bit, but no, that was my question. Blood splatter, for example, or DNA testing. I mean, that's obviously impossible to do on a 900-year-old skull, is it not?
Right. Well, you don't need to. You don't need that. You've got DNA in the bone that is fairly easy to recover now. And even though it is heavily contaminated with the bacteria of death and all that, they've done such incredible work learning how to recover the Neanderthals genome that they were able to do a new type of human species called Denisova that was discovered in 2010. They were able to get almost its entire genome in about 6 months. So incredible progress in DNA analysis of ancient DNA. And when I say ancient DNA, I mean older than 50 years. And you and I, our genome, our full genome could be recovered for about $10,000 US right now. But to do it for something that's been dead for a very long time, that still costs millions because our DNA comes out fresh and clean in long strings that are still together, very easy for the computers and all to read. But the ancient DNA, long dead, those long strings have been put through a wood chipper and turned into glitter, like the size of glitter, like little glitter on the floor. So you have to collect all that glitter and put it together. The computers can do it. They can do it, and they can weed out the bacteria, the genomes of the bacteria and other things, the contaminating genomes. And when they recover it, it's about 99.5% of it will be contamination. But it's very easy to clean that stuff off now and deal with what's actually there. So it's doable, Kevin. That's the key to this. The Starchild's doable. It's just a matter of money now. And as I said earlier, we're in the process of putting together our business, our nonprofit business that's going to be collecting donations at a point in the future that will allow us to do the work and make history as big as history can be made on a scale that almost never happens. It's a big, big moment coming down the pipe, and everybody that is listening to me now will be able to say, in a few months to a year, yeah, I knew about that. I heard that guy talking about it, because it really is going to happen. It really is lined up to unfold pretty much the way I'm telling you.
But obviously you're talking big money. I mean, you're talking millions, aren't you?
Yeah, we do have to collect several million, and that's a fact, but it's unavoidable to do this kind of research. Now, the mainstream, of course, they can get grants to do this from any number of sources. So if they wanted this answer, we would have had it years ago. But this is an answer they don't want, so they have worked very hard to keep us marginalized and minimalized. But now, over time, it's just collected enough momentum with people who are outside science and who are in business and who have taken the trouble to research it and meet the geneticist or go to the lab or whatever and find out that, oh yeah, this is absolutely 100% legitimate. And so as these businessmen have made themselves aware of these realities, they are wanting to become a part of it, because it will help so many of us down the line, not just in those ways, Kevin, that I mentioned about science and all the positive steps that we'll take in terms of science, but just in health things. For example, I told you that the Starchild's bone is 2 to 3 times harder than ours. Well, once we understand its genome and how its genome is put together, we may very likely be able to pull some kind of healing modality or treatment out of that bone. How does it make that so much collagen? How does it make that collagen make the bone harder and all that? We figure that out. We could do some incredibly positive things for human beings to increase the strength of our bones, especially the strength of the bones in our joints. Arthritis may become a thing of the past. Can you imagine? Or the softening of bones as we age, so that we break our hips and we're dead in a few months. That may become a thing of the past. So the Starchild can help us in a number of ways, particularly health ways, because we don't know what its genome is going to tell us about how our genome could be improved and made correct. Right now, they're trying to find these kinds of things in the Neanderthal. There's no reason they can't find the same kind of things in the Starchild. Remember, or you probably don't know this, but humans have over 4,000 genetic disorders in our genome. Over 4,000 and counting. New ones are found fairly regularly. If we have that many genetic flaws, there's plenty room to improve, to fix, to eliminate problems. And the Starchild can help with that.
Okay, Lloyd, well, we've got to take a short break there, so stay tuned, and the phone lines are now open for you to speak to Lloyd Pye or share your opinion. You can call us on 0292 000 3666 or text your comments and questions to 07728 758 759. International listeners outside the UK may Skype the show by adding the More Show Live, or you may choose to interact with us on Facebook and Twitter.
The More Show is in partnership with Ozark Mountain Publishing, taking readers beyond the unexplained.
If you like what you watch, then don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Twitter for the latest updates on The More Show. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel for new weekly television and radio shows.
The More Show is supported by Mindscape, Paranormal and UFO Matrix magazines. Available for download on all major digital platforms.
Lloyd, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Kevin.
Lloyd, what has the direction of your work gone? I mean, what is the sort of latest direction of the Starchild? So I'm getting this all wrong here. What is your latest direction?
Well, the latest direction is to take care of the business end of things. Kevin, we've connected with some businessmen in the Tampa area, Tampa, Florida. I live in the Panhandle, which is the northwest part of Florida, and these guys are down in Tampa. And they're pulling together a team of individuals who are interested in doing this work and just getting an answer. I mean, the campaign is called I Need to Know. And they're working it up, and these are abilities, you know, they have powers and abilities far beyond me in terms of business and working on the, you know, working the internet, working social media, all this. And those are the things that need to be done to get the amount of money, which is fairly large, that we need to have to do what we have to do. So that's really it. All the effort is focused on getting the business end of things squared away, getting the money in. We've done plenty of DNA, like 200 million, relative to the whole genome of a human. It's a fairly small percentage, but it's a huge amount, and it certainly gives us all a clear indication of where this research is going and where, you know, what the answer is going to be. So we know it's going to be alien. We know we're going to change history, and it's just a matter of getting the money. So that's our focus right now.
Okay, and we did get a text in from Craig from Newport, I believe. How many Starchild Skulls are there in the world? Which part and why?
There's only one Starchild, but again, let's go back to the Coneheads. There are hundreds of those, and the Coneheads. And I should mention here that for those who are interested in this whole subject in general of these alien skulls, and I believe that the Coneheads will qualify for that, a friend of mine and I, Brian Forster, who I think is going to be on your show at some point in the future, are going to co-lead a tour to Peru of all of the usual standard megalithic sites that are down there that everybody has on their bucket list, like Machu Picchu, Sacsayhuaman, Ollantaytambo, fly over the plains of Nazca and see those amazing drawings on the desert floor down there. Go to, if you come to the add-on of the tour, Tiwanaku in Bolivia, and especially Pumapunka. These places are just incredible in their own right, but added on to that is going to be a special emphasis on places where these Conehead skulls are held in museums down there. And you'll have Brian, who's an expert on the Coneheads, and you'll have me, who is an expert, obviously, on the Starchild, to discuss this whole subject of ancient skulls that look to be in every way not human. And so for those who come, of course, that they will be able to engage not only with the megalithic relics and artifacts that are there, but the skulls, the incredible things that are held in the museums there. And there are very few trips that you can say legitimately, well, that's a trip of a lifetime. But I did it when in 1994 when I was a younger man, and with someone else leading the tour, a man named Zechariah Sitchin, and it was had a profound impact on my life and my career. And anybody out there that wants to really, really become knowledgeable about this, look into it. It's August of this coming year, just a few months. Go to Hidden Inca Tours, www.hidden, the word hidden, Inca, I-N-C-A, tours.com, and read about it, and you'll see what a phenomenal trip it's going to be, and for a very reasonable price. I'm stunned. Brian has worked it out so that it costs as much today as it did in 1994. It's just incredible. It's what I paid to go back then. So for all of you listeners who are interested in knowing more, this is a terrific way, and not just Kevin Moore, but more about this. And this is a terrific way to find out. It really is.
Okay, well, we'll put a link on our website for that, Lloyd, as well.
Please do.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And we'll also put a link on our website for Zachariah Stitching. And I can't believe you met the guy. I mean, I only got to speak to him just before his death, and I got so close to interviewing him. He was very, very respected in his work. So we'll put a link on there for him as well.
Yeah, I knew him pretty well. In fact, I knew him very well, and very, very interesting man who had a real pivotal effect on my life and my career.
Absolutely. Okay, well, we've got, I think it's Christine on the line. Christine, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Hi, go ahead for your question, please.
I read your ebook, and I was really interested. The technical stuff was a little bit beyond me, I must admit, but I recognised there was lots of difference, sort of physiologically and, well, as far as you know, genetically. But it was the actual finding of the thing. Around about 1930, I understand, wasn't it? It was a teenage girl.
Do you know what, Christine? Do you have your radio turned up in the background because we've got a very bad echo?
Yeah, I do actually.
Just turn it down a little bit. Yeah, you're just going to have to make your question a bit snappier as well here, Christine, because we're running into overload in time.
Okay. Tell me about the girl that actually found the skull. And how do you know that? I mean, I saw that there was this couple of skeletons lying beside each other. But how do you know that? How do you know about this? Did she live? Did she tell people before she? I don't know. How do you know it?
That's exactly right, Christine. When she was a teenager, she didn't remember in later life if she was 13, 14, 15. She couldn't remember. But when she was in the early 1990s, when she found out that she had terminal cancer, she passed the skulls on to friends of hers that she thought would be willing to keep them. It was like settling the affairs and taking care of a pet or something like that. And in giving them the skulls, she told them the story of how she came to find them. And at the time, she didn't know that every word she was saying a few years later would be of critical importance. So we only have the story as she told it to those people, and then as those people told it to Ray and Melanie, who 5 years later came in possession of the skulls. So a little bit of Chinese whispers there. So some of the things that she might have told the first couple might have been lost, in the telling. So what we're left with is the story as she told it. But I can tell you this, that each skull was carbon dated at a different time at a different lab. And both of those carbon dates came back as 900 years ago, plus or minus 40 years, which is very precise. And it's a very, very good and strong piece of evidence that whatever they were, they died at the same time and were indeed buried in that mine tunnel in the way that she said she found them. And the human does not have staining on its face, but as you saw with the Starchild, there is the staining that here in this area here that came from being buried under the soil there. So.
Okay, well, Christine, thanks for your question there, and also, Lloyd. I mean, have you done any sort of forensic reconstruction on the skull as well? For the lower jaw.
We've done plenty of that. It's been reconstructed by a dozen or more people. And I think on the website we have a kind of amusing morphing scene where one recreation morphs into another, morphs into another, morphs into another. But right now, as we speak, a woman named Lois Gibson from here in the States, who is the top forensic artist probably in the world, her drawings have led to over 500 captures of murderers, rapists, child stealers, whatever. She does amazingly good work, and she has examined the Starchild Skull in detail recently and is going to be producing her rendition of what it looks like. And we suspect that will, over time, probably become the iconic image of it. But that's still in process, and I'm not sure. We may have that in 2 or 3 weeks. I don't know.
Okay, and just tell us as well your website address again as well, please.
Okay, it's starchildproject.com, www.starchildproject.com. My personal website is www.LLOYDPYE.com. Good English name, PYE. And the one for those who might be interested in going on the tour with us to Peru in August, from August 5th to August 21st, that would be www.hiddenincatours.com. Hidden, I-N-C-A, tours.com with Brian Forster, and you would contact Brian if you're interested in learning more about it or joining us. And we hope you will. The tour is going to have along for the ride 4 documentarians who are going to be shooting a documentary film about it. So anybody that comes, if you're on the run and hiding out, don't come on this tour, because you'll be a part of that documentary film if you come.
Okay. And what sort of final message would you want to leave our audience today?
Well, just to prepare yourself for what's coming here with the Starchild, because, as I've said, in the next several months to a year, we will be able to announce, I'm sure that we'll have the money and we'll be started and underway, and some of the first results that are publishable will be coming in. So just, it's one of those things like, watch this space. Watch this space. The Starchild is a real, true alien relic, and it's going to change history as big as history can be changed, like the Wright brothers, like landing on the moon, like proving that the Earth wasn't the center of everything and wasn't flat. At that scale of discovery, this is what we're dealing with. It's big. It's a big deal. It really is.
Well, Lloyd Pye, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Kevin, for having me, and I look forward to being with you again sometime.
It'd be a pleasure to get you on. Thank you so much. Well, stay tuned, as after the break I'll be joined by Neil Slade, who's an author on brain and behaviour. So stay tuned, and we'll find out how the brain and behaviour works and how to access creativity and problem solving.
Visit themoreshow.co.uk/shop to purchase products and services from your favourite past guests. If you're new to this site, you can also catch up on the previous television and radio shows through YouTube and the More Show website.